I have a question for you which may seem strange at first, but you'll understand why. My question is, are you killing someone with your sympathy? And immediately your brain goes, huh, what? How can you kill someone with your sympathy? Well, you actually can. Few people understand how damaging sympathy can be. Sympathy can be very, very damaging to a person on a whole. Sympathy is like going to an alcoholic who's lying on the street, homeless alcoholic lying on the street to finish their last bottle of whiskey, and going up and going, here's more whiskey, keep drinking. That's what sympathy is like, because sympathy is feeding an addiction. It's feeding the victim mentality addiction. Because anyone who you would give sympathy to, you see them as a victim, or else why would you give them sympathy? It's because you're seeing them as a victim and you're labeling them as a victim, so then you give them sympathy. And then they see themselves as a victim, and quite often they see themselves as a victim first, and then they look for people that will give them sympathy, because what sympathy does is it feeds that victim mentality. So the person, why would someone be a victim? Someone is playing a victim because they're low on energy. They're low on energy, and at whatever time in their life, because of their personality type or whatever, they have associated getting energy with being a victim and receiving sympathy. And that's them getting attention, it's getting energy from other people, but it doesn't actually empower them. It doesn't actually get them out of being the victim into an empowered state. All it does is it feeds that thing. It's like the alcoholic. You can't get an alcoholic clean by keep on giving them whiskey. You can't get a victim out of being a victim by giving them sympathy, because it's just feeding it. It's just feeding it, and then they've got no desire to get out of it. They've got no reason to, because they're getting what the victim wants, which is sympathy, right? So, but there is a way without being sympathetic, because people some people see me as being unsympathetic, and then they relate that, or to them that equals uncaring. Because I'm unsympathetic, I must be uncaring, which is not true. I'm unsympathetic because I am caring, because I understand. I understand it. I understand what sympathy does, and it doesn't help anyone. It really doesn't. So instead of being sympathetic, what we can do to influence the person out of being a victim is being empathetic. Empathetic. Because if we just go straight away and just tell that person, hey, look, you're being this, you're being that, sort it out. Might work, but the chances are they'll dig their heels in. They'll get defensive, and they'll defend their point of view, and they'll defend where they are in the world, and they'll defend all the reasons why. They'll justify it, right? And they won't go anywhere. So you got to get rapport with them. You get rapport with them by being empathetic. So you go from being sympathetic to being empathetic. And empathetic is really, you just can empathize with where they're at. You can go, look, I understand where you're at. I've been there before. And there's a little Jedi mind trick which will help you to be able to do this. And it's called feel, felt, found. And what it helps you do, it helps you to gain rapport with the other person, and then positively influence them after you've gained rapport. And so what you would do, this little 3 words that you'll remember by is feel, felt, found. And you can say to the person, look, so just say, for example, the person has lost their job, they've no money, and so they say to you, hey, look, life's crap. I've lost my job, I've no money, my girlfriend's left me, my landlord's breathing down my neck, he wants the next month's rent, I'm going to be out in the street, and it just feels like the whole world's against me. So you could say, look, stop being such a wussy, sort your life out. Might work. Sometimes people need a bit of a snap like that. But, here's a Jedi way of doing it. You say, look, this is how you empathize. You say, look, I appreciate how you feel. And the person's like, oh, you do? Yeah, I felt the exact same way. There's one time when I lost my job, I had no money, I had no friends, and it felt like the whole world was against me. And what I realized was as long as I stayed the victim, my circumstances would never get better. And so you've pointed out at this stage that they are being a victim, but you haven't directly told them they're a victim, but you're talking about yourself, that it once happened to you. So you're telling them a story, you're using a metaphor. And so then they say, okay, so that they've got nothing to defend because you're talking about you, but they still get it, right? They still get that they're being a victim. And what you're also doing is you're also using their words. Where I'm using their words, and I'm also saying, and I felt like the whole world was against me. So straight away they're like, oh yeah, he's like me. He's using my words. It's an unconscious thing. It's not even conscious. It's a Jedi mind trick. And to help influence them into a more positive state, or into a more empowered state at least, right? And then you say, so as soon as they see you're on their side, and you're like them, and you were once in their position, and then you say, and what I find is, I appreciate how you feel. I felt the same way, and what I found was, as long as I stayed the victim, my circumstances would never change. So I decided to empower myself, and I took action, and I went out and applied for as many jobs as I possibly could, or I found this excellent business opportunity just because I started looking for them. And I just took massive action and applied for everything, and I ended up getting a job that was better than I had before, because it's really interesting. As soon as one door closes, another door opens, and suddenly you're showing them the light. You know, this is a great thing that door is closed, because what happens in the universe is another door opens. So you've shown them, oh, they're not stuck, right? And I got a better paying job, and with less of a commute, and I ended up meeting a girl at my work, which became my girlfriend, and everything turned out better. So quite often, you know, when we see things as being really terrible, we look for the seed of hope in that adversity, and actually, if we just focus on what's great about it, and take massive action, then it's amazing what can happen. And suddenly you start to influence them, and you've gone beside them on their path, and you start to bring them onto a brighter path, onto a clearer path, onto the high ground. And suddenly they've got a better vantage point. They can see, and they go, oh yeah, I've got all these different opportunities. So that's how you help someone come out of their victim mentality. That's the Jedi way. Yeah? Makes sense? So, you know, you probably want to watch this video a few times and actually start practicing those words, because it will happen to you, and you want to have that off pat. You want to be able to say, look, I appreciate how you feel. I felt the same way. And even if it's, you know, you can't appreciate how they feel because it's you don't know how they feel, because maybe it's something completely different. You've never experienced that before. Maybe it's someone of the opposite sex who's experiencing something that only someone from the opposite sex can experience, right? So as soon as you say, look, I know how you feel, they're like, no, you don't, right? But what you can say is you can be a bit creative, and you can say, look, I appreciate how you feel because I know somebody else who had that same experience. So straight away you're taking it to a third person then, and what happened to them, and then what they felt this and what they found, and then you can go with that, or you can tell some other stories and other metaphors. So there's many creative ways that you can go about this, even if you haven't directly experienced, because you don't want to lie to the person. You don't want to say, oh yeah, that happened to me, when it really didn't. But quite often we can find examples in our life that are related, because, you know, humans, we're not so different after all. You know, we all have very, very similar experiences, very similar fears, and we all want similar sorts of things in life. We want to be empowered, right? We want to be free, and we want to live a great life. So that's my hope for you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.